Atlantic Ocean water is just cold.
I mean,
and that's
not
on
anymore,
this side
it's
of
not, baby. We're all gonna die.
Oh. Welcome to Sis Flicks, the podcast where we won't judge you for talking through the movie. Sis Flicks are the movies you laugh at, yearn for, and overanalyze with your girls, significant others, and now us.
We are your hosts,
Paola
and Nadhya, two sisters and designers who discuss chick flicks we hate to love,
tropes we love to hate,
and all of the aesthetic choices in between. Join us as we break down our favorite movies together.
Hey, sister.
Hey, sister.
How you doing?
As well as can be expected. How about you?
Happy December. I hope the holidays are treating everyone well. And if they're not, I hope you're finding some refuge in some of your favorite media, because it is also the season for cheesy holiday movies and comfort shows. Which one are you going towards, Nadhya?
I mean, I haven't really been watching like a lot of holiday movies. I have watched Hot Frosty, The Merry Gentleman, and The Night Before Christmas. You guys, it's a real Netflix holiday movie month for me. They're dog shit. Wow, those movies are terrible. Like the things I say to myself where I'm like, I'm dumb, I'm not smart. And then these movies exist. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I could write that movie.
Oh my God. I have yet to watch Hot Frosty.
Oh, it's
I've
bad.
been really wanting to watch Meet Me Next Christmas with Christina Milian. I have to get started on my holiday movie list.
I've been watching a couple of bad Christmas movies, a handful of Hallmark movies with my husband. We've been watching Abbott Elementary. That's a good comfort show.
Love it.
How about you,
Love
sister?
it. Well, speaking of comfort shows, I mean, I'm finally ready to talk about Heartstopper Season 3. We are finally ready to talk about Heartstopper Season 3. My goodness, the way this season got me. I wouldn't call this season a comfort season just yet. Like, I think I need to get a couple more rewatches in before it becomes a comfort season, because the way this season had me in my feelings.
Yeah, this isn't going to be a comfort season for me. Thanks.
Yeah.
Won't be revisiting for joy purposes. No.
Oh my
I'll revisit it when I want to cry.
We have a little reaction video, which will be up on our Patreon. And it's just us watching and crying, really. You can find the link to our Patreon in our show notes. And it's a great way to help support the pod, and while you get some extra goodies and content as well. All right. So as we get into Season 3, released this past October 2024. Like we were saying, compared to the last two seasons, this season feels so much heavier. I mean, it really delves into Charlie's mental and emotional health. We see how that affects Nick's emotional health. The gang overall is dealing with more mature topics this season, while some of our characters are still discovering and kind of redefining themselves in their sexuality and gender identity. We also see some major transphobia take place in this season. So it feels a lot heavier, feels a bit more mature. We've seen the gang deal with bits of this throughout the past two seasons, but it's always within the cocoon of their friendship group, right? And their familiar environments in their school or at home within their families. And I feel like this season really takes our characters out of their safe spaces, out of home and school, and into, quote unquote, the real world and different spaces. While we're seeing our teens growing, their relationships are growing and evolving naturally. And so sex exploration is a big part of the narrative this season as well. The way the show explores sex this season is very true to Heartstopper and their style of storytelling. It's not raunchy or even very suggestive at all, but they do talk about it quite a bit. So if you're a parent like me, Paola, who's been watching this with their preteen or teenager, you definitely want to keep that in mind, as every kid has a different comfort level when it comes to the topic of sex. I know for my 12-year-old at this point, she definitely wouldn't be comfortable with the conversation surrounding sex in this season. So we'll personally be holding off on season 3 for just a little bit longer. If you're joining us here fresh, we would recommend starting at our season 1 and 2 recaps. They are perfectly lengthy and bingeable to get you through a couple 8-hour workdays.
They can get you through a week. They can get you through a week of work.
So, Heartstopper season 3 is based on Alice Oseman's 4th and 5th book in her popular webcomic series. Season 4 has yet to be announced by Netflix. I'm actually a little nervous at this point.
Yeah, this season, watching it definitely felt like the perfect spot to discontinue the series. Like, if this was the spot where Netflix was going to axe the rest, it doesn't necessarily leave you on a cliffhanger. It comes to kind of its own satisfying conclusion. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like, everybody else who's part of the show gets super booked and busy, specifically the actors, and they aren't able to return. But our fingers are crossed that we get a season 4 or some type of wrap up, maybe like a movie, maybe that type of situation, or even a Tori-centric exploration, since the original idea for Heartstopper came from Solitaire, Alice Oseman's first novel, which centers Tori, Charlie's older sister, as the main character.
Yeah. Well, even the 6th book, which is what season 4 would be based on, is not finished yet. So Alice Oseman is still working on it. And Alice Oseman herself has said that she wants the book to come out before season 4, so that people can experience the end of the story from the books first. Mm-hmm. So she will most likely be working on the 6th and final volume of the novels while writing the scripts for season 4 as well.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's a lot. I can imagine it being a lot. So I can imagine it taking some time. But she has already expressed that the 6th book will be the final book, and it'll be the end of
an era.
Right. It'll be concluding Charlie and Nick's story. So with that feeling so close, it would really be such a disservice for Netflix and not to let her just conclude it the way that she sees it after the success of this show. But I'm assuming that because the book isn't done, that maybe that's why it's taking a little bit longer. And like you said, also all these actors, they're getting booked and busy. So yeah, they're keeping us at the edge of our seats. Not at the tip of our toes.
I thought you were going to say the edge of our toes.
That's where I was going.
They're keeping us on the tips of our seats.
Yes. Tips of our seats, edge of our toes. It is nerve-wracking. Oh, goodness. Back to Alice Oseman. So as she's writing parts of book 6, she's releasing them online monthly. So you can follow her progress as she releases them monthly, couple pages at a time. We'll try to find the link for that so we can put it in our show notes as well. And you can kind of follow the progress. I just like to wait till the end and just read it
at once
in one go. But if you want to keep track of Nick and Charlie, you can definitely keep track of Alice Oseman's monthly releases, which are cute. So in this season, we see the return of our favorite gays, baby. Joe Locke as Charlie, Kit Connor as Nick, Jasmine Finney as Elle, Toby Donovan as Isaac, William Gao as Tao, Karina Brown as Tara, Kizzy Edgel as Darcy, Ray Norwood as Imogen, Layla Khan as Sahar, and Jenny Walzer as Tori. Who we won't see this season, we will not see the queen, Olivia Colman. She is not in this season. I'm hoping she's coming back for season 4 when it gets announced. Fingers crossed. Instead, though, we got Haley Atwell as Nick's Aunt Diane and as a secondary mother figure in Nick's life. And we've seen Haley Atwell in our screens for over a decade now. I mean, she's up there. And what I find funny is she was actually Captain America's Peggy, which is funny since the series is always mentioning Marvel movies.
Yeah.
I personally saw her for the first time in The Duchess alongside Keira Knightley.
Same. That movie deserves a rewatch.
Oh, yes.
Just for the wigs.
The costumes.
Just for the costumes and the wigs.
In this season, she is an amazing stand-in for Nick's mom. And we're also introduced to Jeff Young, Charlie's therapist, who is played by Eddie Marsan, who I'm really used to seeing as the bad guy, but he did a really great job in Heartstopper, and he does warm and caring very well. Great. I was surprised to see him like in this light. It was endearing.
I was also surprised. Yeah, he's always playing like a sinister villain.
Yeah, always. We also meet Darcy's grandmother, played by Annette Badland, who Outlander fans know as Mrs. Fitz in Outlander.
Is that good?
Yeah, Mrs. Fitz is la viejita when he goes to Castle Leoc.
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Yes, Mrs. Fitz, she's a great motherly figure in Outlander. So I was pleasantly surprised to see her here in like modern clothing. I'm like, oh shit. And last, sisters, but certainly not least, we have a brief, really honestly too brief, cameo from the one and only Jonathan Bailey, who somehow found the time between Fellow Travelers, Bridgerton, and the masterpiece that is Wicked to go support this wonderful show as Charlie's favorite author, Jack Maddox.
That, I don't know how this man, after he wrapped like all of these simultaneous projects, he must have slept for 1,000 straight hours.
Between him and Nicholas Galatine's 2023, like I don't want to hear anytime I'm like, oh, they were booked, like I don't want to hear about anybody being fucking booked because these motherfuckers made it happen.
Grinding. I knew that was coming.
Grinding.
Getting into some of the behind the scenes credits for season 3 of Heartstopper. The series music is done again by Adiesker Chase, and the songs curated for the soundtrack, again as usual per season 1 and season 2, were handpicked by Alice Oseman herself along with the executive producer Patrick Walters. The tracks are perfectly on point. They have the right energy but also relevant lyrics, and they highlight indie artists in this really special way. You got this like kind of incredible trifecta of good music picks. And I just want to say, like, just as a goof and a gas, I watch Love is Blind. Paola doesn't. Love is Blind has a reputation for the most randomly specific songs in the background of like every scene. It's like the songs are AI generated at this point. Like it'll be like, oh, you know, my last relationship ended because I cheated on my partner. And the song lyrics will literally be like, and he cheated, will he cheat on me? And you're like... And so the joke I was going to make is like the songs in Heartstopper are like 3 clicks less specific than the songs on Love is Blind. Both Netflix properties, but
crazy.
Anywho, the series costume and wardrobe is done by Adam D, and that's been consistent throughout seasons 1, 2, and 3. Production design is done by Karis Beard and Tim Dickel, also has been consistent for 3 seasons. The series is directed in season 3 specifically by Andy Newberry, who is new to the Heartstopper series. So Euros Lynn actually directed the first 2 seasons, and we loved his style of direction. We loved some of these incredible shots, some of the framing, the use of color, the way that one episode bled into the next, that seasons 1 and 2 were kind of seamless and indistinguishable from each other. Season 3 goes in a slightly different direction with its new director, Andy Newberry. Usually, you know, changes like these make us nervous, right? We saw big changes with Bridgerton, season 3. That's another one where bringing in some background behind the scenes changes did really affect the final product of what we saw in the show. Sometimes good, sometimes not as good. I think aside from not having the same type of maybe like artistry in some of the shots and some of the color usage and direction, I think it's still very consistent. Andy Newberry seemed to really honor a lot of the choices that were made by Euros Lyn in seasons 1 and 2. So very solid. Outside of the storytelling mechanism, which we will discuss as we get into episodes 1 through 4, I think direction-wise, it was really solid.
Yeah. I think aesthetically, it was untouched pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And the performances are just outstanding.
Oh,
so
tip top. Yeah, the performances are phenomenal.
Emmys all around.
Emmys all around, tissues all around. Everybody, let's get ready to cry. Let's fucking get into it, Paola.
So the last time we saw the gang was on the evening of their prom celebration, where everyone decided to ditch prom and head to Nick's house, where they all had their own little hangout. After everyone left, Charlie stays behind with Nick, and they have a really emotional heart-to-heart about Charlie's struggle with eating and occasional incidents of self-harm. One of the most emotional scenes of season 2. And it had been one of their deepest conversations, with Nick sharing how much he cared about him and how he would be there for him whenever things got really bad. And this conversation almost ends with Nick saying those 3 little words before they are interrupted by Nick's mom arriving home. So Charlie leaves. On Charlie's way home that night, he starts to text Nick, "I love you," as the episode cuts to black, and we're like, no, was he really gonna say that over text? So now season 3 starts, and what we are assuming is just a couple of weeks after that incident. I mean, they confirm it halfway through the episode. It's been a couple of weeks since that incident. I would say it's within the first month of their summer break, midsummer at this point. We're at midsummer of the summer they went to Paris, the summer of their prom. Mm-hmm. So we open the episode with a camera pan through Tori's room, which we've never seen before. She has a picture of her and Charlie as young kids next to a postcard from Paris that Charlie wrote to her. If you know me, you know I paused it and I read it. And it says, "Dear Tori, Paris is amazing. Me, Nick, and all of our friends are having the best time, although there's been some drama with Tao. And, well, a lot has happened. I'll tell you about it when I get home. Signed off, Charlie," with a smiley face. And I'm assuming he's referring to the drama between Elle and Tao at the beginning of their Paris trip. What other drama could it have been with Tao?
No, that's what I think.
Yeah, he didn't mention the hickey though.
I'm dead.
Hey, Tori, there was some drama
that's
with my neck.
A lot has happened.
Yes. I love that the series opens on this shot because it immediately lets you know how close Tori and Charlie are. Even though up until this point, we only really see Tori sporadically throughout the series, in and out of her room, and she catches, her and Charlie every once in a while having conversations. But her personality seems kind of so dry on screen. That's how she is, that it's so important to show just how much she cares about Charlie, even though she doesn't show it so much outwardly. This season, we do end up seeing a lot of Tori. A big part of her story pulls from Alice Oseman's first novel, Solitaire, and we see a few aspects of that novel represented in this season. So as we're panning through her room, we see lots of mementos, which also lets you know she's a sentimental gal. She keeps a lot of things. We see books. She has Star Wars, Lost in Translation. We see tapes and CDs, which let you know she might be a bit of a purist. She might not stream.
Can't relate, dog. I was like one of the top 5 people using Spotify for streaming in 2024. So
yeah, you put me onto streaming.
I've been a faithful Spotify user, and for what? Fucking corporations. Go on.
For your Spotify Wrapped. Anyway, one of those CDs being Radiohead, something that she has in common with Charlie. And one of my favorite things I noticed in her room is how eclectic it is. full of color and pattern and trinkets. I mean, completely opposite of how we have perceived Tori outwardly. In her usual all black attire, oversized hoodies, this is not how I would have pictured her room to look. She's got a sea turtle stuffed animal, which in my head canon, Charlie bought her from his beach trip with Nick in season 1. And she has bunny slippers. I mean, her room's adorable. She is a multi-dimensional queen. This show really does a phenomenal job of designing the spaces for each individual character to be true to their character and represent them. Because if you look around her room, it is full of plates, bowls, cups with straws in them everywhere, because she spends so much time in her room. So that was a great detail to pick up on that shows us exactly that. She's in and out of her room with her drink and her meal. She goes, eats in her room, leaves in her room when she needs a refill. In this case, she has run out of her drink and leaves her room for a refill when she overhears Charlie in his room. We open up on Charlie with a shot of his white, beat up, very comfy looking Converse. He is standing in front of his mirror, rehearsing how he will tell Nick that he loves him. Honestly, whatever is better than that text he almost sent last season, because Charlie is feeling insecure about telling Nick that he's properly in love with him. For some reason, he's not sure if he'll say it back earnestly. I mean, like anyone can tell, Tori reminds Charlie that Nick is literally obsessed with him. There is no world where Nick isn't going to say, I love you back. So she encourages him to tell him that day. And something that I love about this little interaction between Tori and Charlie, and I think every interaction we see between Tori and Charlie, is how she's literally going in his room to tease him and make fun of him, but then also reassures him, you got this. He's obsessed with you. So I love their dynamic. And you can tell 100% that Alice Oseman is obviously a big sister. So Nick arrives to pick up Charlie so they can leave together for the beach that day. And Nick's big ass arms show up in a tank top, leaving Charlie stuttering as he admires his boyfriend in a vest.
Okay. Keep going.
And Nick's big ass arms show up in a tank top, leaving Charlie stuttering as he admires his boyfriend in a quote unquote vest. And the words, I love you, swirl around the screen in bubble letters. Meanwhile, Charlie is heading to the beach in a cardigan. A dope ass cardigan at that, but a thick cardigan all the same.
England.
Yeah. We get our title card. Love in big balloon letters that pop across the screen. Also heading to the beach that day, we see Elle and Tao, very lovey-dovey, being driven by Elle's mom as Tao plans a romantic dinner for the two of them that evening. Tara and Darcy, we see them running through the streets of this adorable beach town. We find out within the first couple of seconds of seeing them that Darcy has been living with Tara for the past couple of weeks after leaving her house. We saw that at the end of season 2. She hasn't been back home. She went and she's been staying with Tara this whole time. Darcy says that living with her has been like a dream with no immediate response from Tara. ... But they run off and they meet the rest of the gang, who's now at the beach, and watching them all jump and yell and hug in excitement literally made me so happy. Going into this episode, watching them together again, and they all start, they're yelling, oh, the Paris gang back again. Like, I fucking love them.
Same. War. I'd fight wars.
Isaac is there with his set of books. Sahara's there already laughing at Imogen for all the fun she brought and has to carry around now. Chairs, games, floaties. Unfortunately, this beach day looked cold as hell.
You could tell almost like how much color correction they had to do, how they had to make everything look warmer. The actors posted some behind the scenes pictures, obviously after the series was released, and Holy fucking shit. They're all wearing like Uggs and hoodies on this beach day.
No. You could see it through the screen.
You
it's
could
in
see
their
that
faces.
they're cold. It's on their skin. They look cold.
Oh man. All the beach scenes, I'm watching it like almost cringing and shivering for them because
Qué
it
maldito
looked
frío.
so uncomfortable. Yeah, that's what I kept saying. Oh, coño, esa, qué maldito frío.
Yeah.
This beach day was filmed at Lyme Regis Beach in Dorset, England, in October of last year, of 2023. No. Oh, yeah.
Dude, and we live on the East Coast. There are plenty of days in October hot enough to visit a beach because the world is on fire, as we all know. But not hot enough to get in the water. The water's done by October. You're done.
You're done.
You're done. And we're further south than fucking England. Ooh, no, you could not pay me money. I guess you could. You could actually pay me money.
Yeah, you could totally pay me some money. Yeah.
What am I talking about?
I'll take some money. Listen, it might have been cold, but that's okay. Because Kit Connor brought the heat, baby. Sun's out, guns out. He freed the boobies, and we're all Charlie, trying not to look. Anyway, we get the lovely "please rub sunscreen on my back" trope, where animated sparks fly for both Nick and Charlie, as Charlie is rubbing sunscreen on the very melanin deficient Nick Nelson.
Sometimes, okay, I'm going to say something. I'm a pale person. I burn in the sun. It's something that I've been reckoning with for 31 years. But then I see...
Your ancestors did you dirty on that one.
They absolutely fucking did. I don't need colonizer to be written on me the way that it is. But here we are. Then I see people like Kit Connor, also known as Nick Nelson. I see people like my husband. And I'm like, wow, it really could be worse. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what y'all did. I don't know what your ancestors did, but it really could be worse.
While he's getting that extra dose of sunscreen rubbed on his back, the zaps and sparks turn into "I love yous" for Charlie, and he imagines a scenario where he tells Nick that he loves him, and Nick says, "Thank you."
Get the fuck out.
Thank you. It's too early for me to say that, though. Ugh. Come on, Charlie. In what world? Not this one. Just in your imagination. But when he comes out of his daydream, Nick makes sure that Charlie is also practicing sun safety. And Charlie says, "You know what? I don't really burn. I just tan." But Nick goes, "What's a tan?" Never seen one of those.
He's too covered in oppression.
That man has never seen a tan in his life.
Wow.
Nick asks Charlie to get in the water. Charlie says, "No, not just yet." So Nick proceeds to rub sunscreen all over Charlie's face. And they make out, of course, because his hands are already there. So it's very cute and sweet. Before he runs off into the water with the girls. Water that is very, very cold. Staying far, far, far away from the water. Tao and Elle are off, being cute about town, getting ice cream, taking pictures, stopping into shops. And while they're in a shop, Tao very proudly starts telling the cashier about his beautiful girlfriend. I love that. And this cashier could not give a fuck. We don't get an official passage of time, but Tao helps us out when he says that they've been dating for about 3 weeks. If they've been dating for about 3 weeks, which I begin to calculate maybe from the moment he asked her if she wanted to officially be his girlfriend, like a day or two before the Lambert art show. That's the timeline we're sticking to. It's been 3 weeks. Tao and Elle exchange cute little gifts for funsies because they're adorable and they are very sappy and cute. And Tao's romantic side really shows through this season. I really enjoy watching him in a relationship with Elle. I think they balance each other out really well. He tells Elle that he wants to have the most romantic summer ever before Elle leaves for Lambert's. When they get back with the group later on that day, walking around, the guys, specifically Isaac, really start poking fun at Tao about his sappy ass relationship and all the time he's been spending with Elle. And Tao explains that this is their summer of romance and it is perfectly normal for them to be spending all of this time together. Mind you, this is the same Tao that just a few months ago could not get off of Charlie's back for spending time with Nick.
Ooh, how the turns have tabled.
How the turns have tabled.
How the turntables.
Jeez. And Isaac's a little bitter. He's upset. He mentions all the plans Tao has canceled with them to go off with Elle. And Tahar comments, don't worry, the honeymoon period won't last forever. And Tao's like, it might, maybe. What do you mean? And so we start seeing just a little bit of those insecurities Tao has around his relationships and permanence start to creep back. So back at the beach, Nick and the girls are setting up a game. All the girls want to team up against Nick, right? You're a big brawny dude. You can take 3 girls. And Darcy's like, no, I volunteer to team up with Nick. Imogen yells out, but hey, girls have to stick together. And Darcy replies with, I don't care. I hate gender. And this is the first time we hear Darcy vocalize this sentiment. Mm-hmm. So we put a pin on that for now. A few feet away, Charlie cannot fucking keep his eyes off of Nick Nelson. Isaac catches this and also notices he looks ill at ease and asks him what's wrong. And so Charlie opens up, talks to him about his feelings for Nick, how he wants to say the words I love you, and all the anxiety surrounding that. And I love Isaac this season. He's just completely unapologetically Isaac. He has some amazing one-liners. Here's my first favorite. Well, why don't you just sit here and stare at him all day instead? Ooh, shade. I love the shade, Isaac. Thank you. Charlie tries but can't deny that he's literally been staring at Nick all day. Isaac makes a comment that he really doesn't get the appeal. It's like, oh, that good for you, but he doesn't seem to feel attraction towards people the way Charlie explains it. You know, none of that butterflies in your stomach stuff for Isaac. And after Charlie asks, Isaac confirms that he is asexual and probably aromantic as well. A term that Charlie wasn't really familiar with. And when he asks Isaac, he simply says, you can Google it. And can I just say, when Isaac said, you can Google it, I was like, yes. I felt such a relief for Isaac. First of all, I love how unceremoniously Isaac just comes out to Charlie as asexual / aromantic. Just very casual, to the point. Also draws a bit of a boundary when he just asks Charlie to Google its meaning. He's not going to make himself responsible on educating you. You can look it up the same way I had to look it up. Because just imagine how exhausting that can be. Having to explain a whole sexual identity every time you have a conversation. And that is a pressure he is not going to carry. And it felt so good to hear Isaac say that. I felt a little pride for him in that moment. Mm-hmm. And something else that this scene kind of shows you is Charlie asking, hey, but I've never heard that term. What does that mean? Also shows that just because you're gay doesn't mean you're an LGBTQ plus guru. In LGBTQ plus, there's a plus for a reason, and that's always changing and always evolving. And it's important to show that, hey, just because I'm gay doesn't make me the authority on gayness, doesn't make me the authority on queerness. I am not all knowing in the LGBTQ plus community just because I happen to identify as somebody who's LGBTQ. And Charlie mentions that Isaac should open up to the others. He should come out to them because they would all be accepting. And another gem of an answer from Isaac when he says, you know, I just can't be bothered to give everyone a vocab lesson. Again, drawing that boundary. It's just saying, you know what? You can look this up yourself. I am not going to be responsible on educating you and everyone around me. I'm this, you can look it up. And Charlie just leans on him and tells him he loves him. I loved this interaction between Charlie and Isaac. Later on, when it's time for lunch, Charlie tries to have a go at a snack and just can't. He starts to stress out immediately. Nick sees this and makes his way over with his arms to embrace Charlie and try to relax him. When others ask about food, he helps Charlie in trying to deflect the attention away from the food. Great support from Nick and his arms in this scene. As the day continues.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I'm an asshole. As the day continues, we get our first Tara and Nick scene. We love a Tara and Nick scene because they're like sounding boards off of each other. They always touch base every couple of episodes, especially on the first episode of a season, on how they're doing. And then they help push each other to take action on whatever it might be that's bothering them. Here, we finally get some insight into how Tara really feels about Darcy living with her for the past few weeks. It's good, she says, but it's a lot. She immediately, after getting this question, seems overwhelmed. But she feels bad. She feels bad about feeling overwhelmed because she knows how much Darcy needs her help in this time of her life, in this moment in her life. You know, and she says, when someone you love is in trouble, you do anything to help them. This comment that she says, when someone you love is in trouble, you do anything to help them, seems to resonate with Nick as he looks back on Charlie. You know, and Tara continues to say how stressed she is about school, starting sixth form, going over university options. You're reminded again that you couldn't fucking pay me to be a teenager again. Everything you contend with at the same fucking time. And there's pressure and urgency from all around you to have things figured out while your frontal cortex is far from being developed. I'll tell you what, even with that said, for this particular set of kids, none of them are trying to keep a job as well. You know, like when you have to take your little sister back to school shopping, Nadhya. Crazy. You couldn't pay me. You couldn't pay me to go back. Nick understands where she's coming from, but admits that he hasn't really been thinking about school. He's been too distracted to even think about that. In his mind, he flashes back to researching eating disorders in the middle of the night. So we know what Nick's been distracted with. He's not even thinking about school. Not good. Tara notices his mind wandering and gives him a questioning look. He opens up just a bit and very tactfully says, there's something serious he's been needing to talk to Charlie about, but doesn't know how to do it without possibly making it worse. And I believe that Tara sees the worry and pressure on his face and just kind of lets him know, hey, you're doing your best. She doesn't offer advice. I think she's recognizing in him the same stresses she's feeling, right? When you're supporting a loved one. And so she just reassures him. So Nick goes to Charlie and we get the cute little poke scene that we see in the trailer where he pokes his cheek to get his attention while he's got his headphones in. And then he takes his headphones out to talk to Nick. He asks Charlie that they should go in the sea together. The cold ass sea. But Charlie's apprehensive and he says, I don't want to take my shirt off. But without question or probing or wise, Nick just says, okay, then keep it on. It'll just dry in the sun. And let me tell you, this is an underrated response. There was no, why you don't want to take your shirt off? Well, you could just take it off. It'll be fine. There was none of that. There was just like, okay, just keep it on. This helps Charlie oblige to the request.
Nick is just really good. He's really good.
Any other response would have stressed him out and he would have not gone in the ocean. He'd be like, nah, I'm good. This helps Charlie oblige because, of course, how could you say no to Nick Nelson and his arms? And they go in the ocean together. And yo, again, I cannot stress enough. This fucking water is so cold. Like, they really try to play it off. And they sincerely can't.
They try to color balance it so much. They try to make everything look warm. They try to raise the saturation, make everything look yellow. No, dog. It's cold as fuck out there.
They couldn't do it. And even the actors, like, they're good actors. They couldn't.
Yeah, they've been in water before. They were like, oh, fuck, I'm cold. Quick, act warm.
And it's funny because Nick, as they're walking in the water, hand in hand, Nick says, I wish it was a little bit colder, actually. Yo, and my guy's arms are literally purple.
But also like goosebumped. Goose pimple.
Yo, goosebumps, purple. Like, anyway, they're walking into the ocean together, hand in hand. And of course, Nick does what any other beefy boyfriend would do and picks up Charlie to dump him in the water. Afterwards, Charlie tells him he hates him and they share a really sweet kiss. And unfortunately, the green screen summer sky looked really bad in the shot. The color grading was overdone to make up for an obviously cloudy day.
There was a lot in this scene that you could tell they had to modify digitally. That was not it.
And you know what? We don't want to be nitpicky. No, maybe we do. But
maybe we do.
You guys know how visual we are. Mm-hmm. It gets distracting.
I agree.
It gets distracting for us.
Charlie looks yellow like Homer Simpson. and it gives there's this overly smooth quality to his face that gives Uncanny Valley. And one of the things that we heard in interviews, right, between Joe Locke, who plays Charlie, and Kit Connor, who plays Nick Nelson, is that they were doing a lot of kissing during season 3. Yeah. They were doing lots of making out and heavy petting. And they're both men. They're both young men. So they're growing facial hair. They're having to shave every day so that they look like hairless 16-year-olds, and that they were just giving each other beard burn constantly. And they had to digitally edit out how awful and irritated their faces got.
Yeah. And I think this might also depend on the saturation of your personal screen where you watch. But there are scenes where you can see the blotches of makeup when they're obviously trying to cover up a breakout.
Yes. Or you could just see bumps on their faces. There are a bunch of scenes, unfortunately, where you can tell that Charlie's lips, Charlie being Joe Locke, are really swollen or maybe chapped, or maybe he has a cold sore or something like that. You can tell. And he's again, in fairness to them, they're very good. And he's trying to hide it. But I was like, oh, buddy, I feel for you. I'm a person who grew up having cold sores and stuff. Oh, fuck. That'll ruin your fucking day.
Yeah, now you're trying to shoot this in the winter.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Everyone's got a cold. Yeah.
No. Forgive us, but this is just the shit that we can't help but notice even when we don't want to. Anywho, in this specific scene, we're quickly distracted by our distraction when Charlie finally tells Nick that he wants to talk to him about something. Finally, we're going to get the I love you that Charlie and Nick deserves. But no, because Nick says the same. I've been wanting to talk to you about something. And of course, Charlie lets him go first. We were really hoping that Charlie got to say his I love you before anything Nick had to say. But no.
But no, not how that works.
He asks Nick to go ahead. And Nick, who usually, like we've been saying, who usually knows the perfect things to say, always has some pretty good timing. He really, honestly, truly could not have picked a worse moment to bring up Charlie's disordered eating. He starts by saying he's done some research and that he's pretty sure that Charlie has an eating disorder. Charlie hears this and immediately starts to shut down. Quickly blurts out, no, I don't think so. I don't think I do. I know I've got some issues, but I don't think they're that bad. As he's already stepping back away from Nick, he's already leaving this conversation as he's saying this. I'm fine. You don't need to worry about me. Nick immediately senses this vibe from Charlie. He's like, are you mad at me? And Charlie's like, no. It's good. I'm fine. We're fine. Nick is like, so what is it that you wanted to say? And Charlie just says, yeah. You know, that same thing. That thing you said. Yeah. And continues to walk out of the water. They have a very quiet drive home as Nick sleeps on Charlie. Now Charlie is not only worried about his boyfriend leaving for 3 weeks, trying to tell him how he really feels and how he might respond to that. Now he's also worried about his boyfriend worrying about him. Something that he feels it can be now is his fault. A worry he feels he imposed on Nick now. As the day comes to an end, we start to touch base with everyone arriving home that night and wrapping up their evenings. We see Darcy and Tara arriving to Tara's house. And after we are witness to Darcy quite literally throwing everything across the room as she's unpacking her stuff.
Listen, Paola is my older sister. She and I shared a room for like 16 years, okay? And I'm very messy. Anyone who knows me knows this. My partner knows this. My sister knows this. The throwing of shit across the room like triggered something deep within me, like something primal. I was cringing as I was watching that.
Listen, there's levels to messy, right? There's like, I would say,
the other day I folded my pajamas after taking them off before I got in the shower, and I was like, oh, the propaganda has worked.
There's organized mess. There's like a mess, but like, you know where things are. It's not because you threw everything
That's
there.
ADHD,
it's because,
baby.
for example, you have a bit of ADHD and you kind of need to know things are there, and to know they're there, you need to see them. I understand that. I grew up around that. As Nadhya said, we shared a room together. That's different than blatantly disrespecting somebody's space and throwing your shit around.
Yeah, we've all been a guest. We've all been hosted by a friend or family member. That's insane behavior, Darcy. Wild work. That.
Yeah. Ooh, I was watching this like, oh, hell. Because, if you're going to be saying somebody else's space, please have respect for it, right? If you see that they don't leave their stuff lying around in this spot, don't leave your stuff lying around in that spot. Darcy's a teenager, right? We can give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they haven't had to share a space long term before. We can understand that. It becomes clear why Tara's having a hard time sharing her space with Darcy for an indefinite amount of time. So Tara finally tells Darcy that maybe Darcy should try living with her grandmother, who has been reaching out. She seems like a nice and decent person. This can be something that can work for you.
We as the viewer haven't known that this option has been available to Darcy.
Well, she mentions it to Nick at the beach.
Okay.
But yeah, you'd learn on this day that her grandmother's been trying to reach out and maybe she can move in with her. Grandmother's a motherly figure. It's a caretaker. Darcy's still a teenager. Can benefit from that. But we don't know what type of person her grandmother is. We've already seen how her mother is. And that's a no.
Yeah.
But from Tara's perspective, she says, hey, she seems nice and decent. Maybe it's worth a try. And if that doesn't work out, I'm here for you. But let's please try to explore this avenue.
Yeah. And I get that.
This scene could have gone many different ways. I think, especially when you're talking about teenagers, Darcy could have easily been offended by this. But instead, she shows some major maturity in understanding Tara's position. She's just basically like, okay, you're right. I'll call my gram and we'll get it figured out. So kudos to them. I was very happy to see how they were able to come together in this moment and not take it personally, not take offense. There's no attacking. Love that for them. Over by Tao's, he is trying his very best not to blow up the kitchen while he makes the most romantic dinner ever. My guy is stirring what looks like a roux and a red meat sauce at the same time. Like, what is he making? He's got two different types of pastas on the table. There's wrappers, an entire mess. The only thing that saves him here is that he's cooking on an induction cooktop and there's like no open flame. Otherwise, he'd already be putting out a fire. Tao's mom is standing by nervously in this adorable peach and blue kitchen, by the way, that she matches also in the shot.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, Tao has turned it into a disaster.
Obviously.
He needs everything to be perfect because Elle is leaving in 3 weeks and everything is going to change and he doesn't want to lose her. Oof. And we start to see Tao kind of spiral a bit in the face of change, like we've seen him do before. He's trying to kind of control everything around him to counteract that there's this inevitable change coming. What can I control around me? He kind of takes this perfectionist attitude, like, no, I need everything to be perfect because things are about to change. Elle tries to convince him that things won't change. And she's not going to break up with him just because he couldn't manage to make a perfect meal. In this scene, I'm already tired for Elle. It's only been a couple minutes and I'm already exasperated for her. She eventually convinces him to let her order pizza and they can make it romantic and it can still be candlelit and it can still be meaningful. And they do. And it is adorable and romantic. They even eat their pizza with a knife and fork. She showed Tao, we can pivot your perfect plan and it can still come out romantic and beautiful like you wanted it to. And as the season goes on, you really do start seeing him kind of letting go more easily of these expectations of perfection that he puts on himself and on his relationship. A lot of work for Elle, though. And as they enjoy their perfect romantic night over some candles and pizza, finally at Nick's house, Charlie finally gets a small bite to eat as Nick is packing for his summer trip to Menorca, Spain. We see that Charlie has texted Isaac after he by himself, after he looked up. Leave me alone. I didn't say anything. After he, on his own, looked up a romanticism, and Isaac responds with a heart emoji. As friends, this is how you put in effort for each other to better understand each other. Don't always put the work onto somebody else to educate you on something that your friend might be going through. And can I just point out that his text chain with Isaac is so Sis Flicks coded? Yes. Did I pause the screen and read the text messages? Yes, I did.
I don't
and
think
this
anyone's
is what they
surprised
say.
by that.
Isaac writes, yeah, it's really good. Like perfectly casted and perfect soundtrack. And I'm pretty sure he's talking about Pride and Prejudice because in the next text it says, but I think Emma has way better adaptations. And Charlie replies, I don't think I've seen an Emma adaptation. And of course, Isaac replies, I'll make you watch them sometime soon. See, I'm Isaac. Nick, who is getting ready to leave for his 3 whole weeks, comes on the bed to snuggle with his boyfriend, creating the perfect opportunity for Charlie to say that thing he's been wanting to say all day, you know?
No, I'm kidding.
No, because Nick gets up to shower and they plan to put on a movie after. As long as it's not Marvel, says Charlie.
Big LOLs again.
This show, it just throws shade at Marvel like all anytime it gets a chance.
It does until it doesn't.
Yes. When Nick is in the shower, Charlie starts to contemplate all the pictures Nick has on his wall of them. And as he's looking at the pictures, he's remembering every single one of those moments when those pictures were taken and how he felt in that moment, the joy he felt in that moment, the laughter, the cheer, the love he felt in that moment. They're so cute. This seems to give him kind of like the resolve to finally tell Nick about how he feels. And he receives a text from his mom at this moment, and this kind of rushes him to walk up to the bathroom door to confess his feelings. First of all, we're supposed to believe Nick hears him through the door as Charlie's speaking in a normal tone of voice.
Stop. I know. I thought the same thing.
Okay, sure. Second of all, this is such a cop-out by Charlie. It reminds me of the night that they're at the bonfire where Nick is like, I'm going to come out to my mates, and if it goes badly, we'll just leave. Like, this is Charlie's version of that. Like, if this goes badly, I don't have to see his face. I'll leave. He almost talked to the door, didn't have to see his reaction, didn't have to contend with his face or maybe...
Or his arms.
or his arms.
Mm-hmm.
But we as the audience were subjected to look at Nick's expression in the shower, and that's just inappropriate. I don't think they needed that shot. Honestly, inappropriate.
Us watching this episode is us watching this scene where Nick is in the shower and we get like a kind of like a torso and up view of him in the shower.
Jail.
And I literally just close my eyes and turn away from the screen. If Paola posts this reaction video and you watch it, you'll see it. I'm literally like, pero él es un niño. Él es un niño.
He is not legal to drink in the United
Quítamelo
States.
de ahí.
Quítamelo de ahí. Again, inappropriate. Anyway, Charlie, with some encouragement from Nellie Nelson, tells Nick Nelson through the door that he loves him. And so there's a pause. And Nick is processing and he does not answer quickly enough. So naturally, Charlie goes, "Anyway, I'll walk myself home. Bye." Ugh. Nick finally reacts, slips in the shower, almost runs out naked before realizing he needs clothes, runs back upstairs past Nellie Nelson, grabs some shorts and a hoodie, no time for shoes, and a wet Nick Nelson hauls ass out of the door after his boyfriend, who apparently already made it 2 blocks down the road.
Charlie sprinted. You know how they're like, he's really fast. Literally. He runs track. He sprinted. Charlie sprinted.
Dude, the way Nick had to run to catch up to his boo. Ay, ay, ay. Nick runs into his arms, breathless. And he's just like, "Yo, you said it while I was in the shower."
Fair.
What the hell? And when Charlie tries to apologize, he reminds him, no S word. And so Nick asks him to repeat what he said again. And finally, face to face, Charlie tells Nick, "I love you." And what other answer would Nick have other than "I love you too"? Blooms start swirling all around them as the song, "The Best Day of My Life" by Tom Odell continues to play. And Nick repeats, "I love you so much." Aww. And it's so cute. And Charlie starts to ask, "You're not just saying that because I said it, are you?" And Nick stops him. And the lyrics say, "Am I in a dream?" As they look at each other. And Nick says, "Come here, you idiot." Aww. And the song plays. "I think today is the best day of my life," as they close in for a sweet, long kiss under the lamppost. And the song continues. Saw billboard. It said something like, everything's gonna be all right. And it's like, it will be all right. And everything was all right. For like a couple of seconds, everything was all right in the world. They pull apart. Charlie points out that Nick is damp. And he reminds him that, yeah, you decided to say "I love you" for the first time while I was in the shower.
Fair.
And Charlie delivers their iconic "Why are we like this?" with his face stuffed in his boyfriend's hoodie. And Nick says, "Because you're Charlie and you love me and I love you." Aww. And they are fucking precious. And something I love about this end scene that says even more about Nick and Charlie is how Nick starts to walk him home barefoot. And when Charlie pokes fun at him for it, Nick says, "That's how in love I am." But then he says, "I think you would do the same for me." And just that little gesture is a metaphor for their relationship this season. Nick is literally willing to walk along with Charlie on this journey together, no matter what it takes.
I love them.
Such a cute way to end this episode. I loved it.
Yeah, so we're going to cry a lot. This whole season is setting us up to cry a lot, baby. And luckily, the first episode was like really cute and we had fuzzy moments. We had some deep moments. Don't worry, it's going to get worse. So we're moving into episode 2, titled Home. And I just want to call out, I was going to say, for people viewing this on Netflix, it's the only place you're viewing it. This is a Netflix show. The episode cover for this is an image of Tori with like a random guy that we haven't met yet as the viewer. And we're like, we're like, what is happening? Who is this? Is Tori's relationship a part of this episode? No, it's not. So that was like a goof that somebody did, a glitch at Netflix. Not the right episode cover. Fix it.
Right. Maybe if you say it in that accent, they'll
Thank
listen.
you. Thank you. I want to be official. Anyway, episode 2 of Heartstopper season 3 begins with Nick's aunt and uncle picking him up for their family holiday in Menorca, which is in Spain. We learn that the Queen, Olivia Colman, Nick's mom, had to last minute cancel her trip for undefined reasons. You can assume that it's work. They don't try very hard to like give too much exposition on why she's not joining, which I appreciate. Apparently it should have been his mom, aunt, uncle, him, and his little cousins. It'll now just be Nick with his aunt, uncle, and little
David.
cousins. Fuck David. Fuck David. Nick's aunt is named Diane, and as Paula mentioned in episode 1, his aunt is played by Haley Atwell, who was Peggy in the Captain America movies for Marvel and has been in 1 million other things. She's stunning as well, on top of being like a good actress. She's very beautiful, has like a really good energy. The whole time that we see her throughout the course of Heartstopper, she has like a very carefree but like loving, warm, maternal adjacent energy to Nick, right? She gives Nick a hug at his door, says, "My favorite nephew, don't tell David." Girl, David already knows. David already knows, okay? He was under no illusions that he was your favorite.
It's why he hates Nick. Nick is
and because
favorite.
He's 30 years old. So they are on their way to the airport while we see Charlie anxiously waiting for a text message from Nick. And we see Charlie laid up in bed texting. We see him in his living room anxiously checking his phone. This entire like kind of small montage of Charlie is set to an upbeat pop song with the lyrics, "It gets better," over the scene, which I thought was like a cute detail, but I feel like it doesn't actually get better. Charlie, while he's sitting in his living room, again, anxiously checking his phone, waiting to hear from Nick to make sure that he landed in Spain, imagines that Nick is next to him on the couch. And we know he's imagining based on the pink halo that appears around the edges of the screen, kind of like a lovey-dovey daydream.
Also because we know Nick can't teleport.
Well, what? Who knows that, Paola? It's a TV show. And they are making out like intensely as Charlie says, "I love you." And we hear these electric zing sounds, kind of like little lightning bolts, like little like sparks happening between them.
Zip, zip.
Zip, zip. And finally, Nick texts Charlie after arriving at the airport, and he seems stressed, right? We get a shot of him kind of standing apart from his family as he's texting. He refrains from asking Charlie if he's eaten today. We see him type it out on his phone and then erase it.
When I saw him type that out, I was like, no. Don't send that. And then I saw him erase it and I was like, oh.
Yeah, our boy Nick is smart. A smart cookie for a 16, 17-year-old boy. We get the title card, Home, which appears from underneath a black cloud and scratchy marks on the screen. So that's already not feeling great. We see back in Charlie's home, Charlie's mom comes into the living room and asks if he can tidy up the living area. Charlie pretty much ignores her. She walks out. Tori comes in to check on Charlie and asks, "Did you do it?" It being saying "I love you" to Nick for the first time. And he tells her that he did and that he had a really great day at the beach with all of his friends. He kind of cuts himself off as he remembers the conversation he and Nick had out on the water and begins to stutter his way through an explanation of what Nick brought up, right? That he's afraid Charlie has an eating disorder. And at this moment, as he's trying to explain this to Tori, he's interrupted by a call from Nick, who has arrived at the vacation villa after getting to Spain safely. Sadly, when Nick finally calls, they get a super shaky connection and they can barely hear each other. As he's trying to like hear Nick, and I feel like all of us are always tempted to like take our phones and like slap them the way you would do with like a remote control with batteries in it. You know, like connect, be connect, better.
Come on,
letting me
shake
hear
it a little bit.
Yeah, literally, just shake it. It'll work.
It was the Verizon commercials growing up. That's what got us. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
Hear me now?
Oh wow, I hope that man has a lot of money. So as he's trying to hear Nick, Charlie's mom comes in and starts kind of quote unquote nagging, right? Like that's how you could see this interaction described. She's really just being a mom, right?
I guess
she's telling
she's
Charlie,
really annoying me here in the scene.
And I have a theory on why. So she comes in and she's like, "Charlie, I asked you to tidy up. What the fuck are you doing? Get off the phone. Like get off the phone with Nick. You don't need to talk to him right now. Like tidy up like I asked you to." And then Charlie like snaps at her. He's like immediately annoyed. Like, "Well, I can't even fucking talk to Nick. So fine, you got what you wanted." And she's like, "Listen, we need to talk about Nick anyway. You shouldn't be staying at his house because you're too young to have sex." This, like, the way this goes from 0 to 100. And she's like, "You need to focus on your studies," which is also something valid to bring up. It's just that she dumps like 5 different grievances about his relationship on him at the same time when he's already not doing great. And you can kind of tell with your naked eyes that he's not doing great. Tori, who is still in the living room with him, tries to come to his defense. And she's like, hey, relax. Like, you're making a problem out of nothing. Like, Charlie's fine. Nick is fine. Also, the school year's over. His studies, he's got months to prep for his studies. His mom kind of steamrolls over both of them. And Charlie is now super upset. As I mentioned, he snaps at his mom. And this is my thing, right? She doesn't take the time to ask Charlie how the relationship is going, how he's feeling. She doesn't ask if they're having sex or why Charlie was wearing Nick's clothes, which he was about to explain, and she cut him off. She just assumes and draws erroneous conclusions. I've mentioned this in previous episodes as we recap Heartstopper. This reminds me a lot of my mom.
Oh my God.
Because there's this element of their mom going to Tori and being like, well, you have to talk to Charlie because he doesn't listen to me. That's a dynamic I very much grew up with. Unfortunately for my sister, who's also half my mom. So
yeah, and it's a constant reminder, like, there's a reason why she won't feel comfortable speaking with you. And it's because all you do is throw accusations out there. Have a conversation. Ask a question.
Listen. Just take a second and listen. Having a family that doesn't listen to you, that doesn't validate you, that doesn't acknowledge things about you, that is a disorienting fucking experience. And I really empathize with Charlie here because he's trying his hardest to be like, oh, I was wearing a sweatshirt because. Wait, no, we're not having sex. But Nick isn't impacting my studies anymore. It's summertime. We're not at school. He's trying to make it a conversation. And his mom is just kind of like, well, you're too young to have sex. Why are you wearing his clothes? You shouldn't be sleeping over there. And your studies are blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, you're not really going to get a positive response from anybody if you come at them like that. It's just that you respect adults and you don't respect kids. So you expect submission from kids and respect from adults. Like, that's wild to me. I grew up with a lot of that. I mean, Paola can totally let me know if I'm lying.
No, yeah. Watching Charlie's mom was a little bit triggering. And like, I'm watching this and I'm like, I can't stand her. And she's like, you know, she literally reminds me of our mom. And I'm like, you know what? That's I love my mom. She's awesome. But there are very certain parts of my adolescence that were very rough because of this type of behavior. And like, I had hope for her when they left the dinner at Nick's house because she's like, oh, Nick's a nice boy. And, you know, maybe we'll have them over for dinner. And right, because that opens a door. That opens an avenue for conversation with these kids. Get to know them. She didn't even know Nick was away.
Yeah.
Right?
He's on holiday. He's not even in town.
He's not even in town. You don't know that he hasn't been able to speak to him since his flight was she has no idea. She has no idea what stresses Charlie has. She has no idea. She doesn't know, and it's such an indicator that she doesn't talk to her kids. She pushes that on to Tori. Tori has to take, and not that Tori's not resent. Tori is his sounding board at home because Tori cares about him. But she's too comfortable with that as a mom. She's too comfortable that he only talks to Tori.
Paola, what's that like?
Girl. Oof. I'm hot. I'm hot right now. Do you want this episode to be 4 hours? No, I don't think so.
Maybe the listeners do.
Oh, no, God.
Dude, but as I was watching that, I was like, oh, yeah, no, that feels very familiar to me. Dude, because it's really only been in the last, maybe since I graduated college. So maybe like the last decade that I've intentionally, not on behalf of my parents, have made a huge effort to cultivate a better relationship with my parents. Because really, if it was up to them, that wouldn't be part of the equation. It would just be like business as usual. Business as usual was Paola being an intermediary between me and my parents for like most of my life. And my parents never asking me a question about myself, not knowing any of my friends' names, not knowing anything about my life away at college, not knowing anything about my boyfriends once I started having them.
Had moved out and I would get
far away.
I had moved out across the country. And I would get a phone call at 9 a.m. from my mom, right? After she's on her way to work. And I will hear all about, no, because talk to your sister, because this happened and blah, blah, blah. And then around lunchtime, when my sister was on lunch break, I would get a call from her like, yo,
Mommy's fucking
mommy
tripping.
is tripping. This is what happened this morning. And blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, y'all, really?
Can you guys fucking talk? And that was the thing. Paola would tell me, she would be like, yo,
and I'm like, well, this is
you...
where mommy's coming from. And then I'd call my mom, well, this is where Nadya's coming from.
She'd be like, can you talk? And I would tell her like, yo, I try to talk, and then I just keep getting shut down, told I don't know what I'm talking about, told that I'm too young for this, but I'm too old for that, and I'm not smart about this, but I'm too dumb for this other thing. And it's after a while you just give up, and then the parent is just like, nice, I've won submission, this is good parenting. And it's like, it's not. And cultivating a relationship with your kids where they don't feel comfortable telling you basic shit about their lives, that's not a good relationship. That's not a good relationship, and that's not a relationship that will age and mature well.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that I even grew up into an adult who intentionally made the effort to be closer with my family is because of Paola, because she was always in my ear. Like, yo, you only have two parents. They really tried their best. Well, you know that they went through blah, 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 blah. And like that,
I'm not trying to pressure you.
But yeah, okay. But, you know, to have one person,
it's more like, I don't want to do this by myself, please.
Like, to have one person in my ear just being like, hey, they're not going to be around forever, and things are more complicated than they seem, and I know it feels really tough, but they're not going to be the ones to change. You have to be the one to change. Like, that's fucking annoying.
I mean, it's not fair. It's really not fair that it's always the young adult, you know, growing up and figuring shit out, that has to be the bigger person and to try to understand your parents when they display toxic behavior.
Black Friday strikes again. Yeah, like
it's tough. It's tough. It's not a easy situation.
I think the difference between my experience and Charlie's experience is that I don't think Tori is as parentified as you were, Paola, for example, because the age gap between Tori and Charlie is much smaller. Mm-hmm. So Tori's only a year or two older than Charlie. I think maybe a year. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you can't ask your 11-year-old to parent your 10-year-old, but you can ask your 15-year-old to parent your 10-year-old. Yeah. And that's what ended up happening with us. And, you know, Charlie lashes out, like, in his frustration. I shut down. So there was no back and forth or yelling, you know, between my parents and I. It was me silent for like 5 to 7 years and them talking at me for that amount of time.
I did the yelling.
Yeah, I learned from the yelling. That's why I shut down.
Yeah. Because that didn't go well either.
No, none of it did. One of them was just quieter. None of them went well. But as Bon and I are watching this, like, I do feel like Charlie's overreacting in this scene. I think he overreacts a little bit in general when it comes to his parents, obviously mostly his mom.
I think he's triggered by his mom.
Absolutely. That's where we see the bulk of the negative interactions with his mom. It's never really with his dad. But honestly, dude, all I had to do was remember what I was like in college. And then I just had to be like, I can't judge Charlie for this.
Yeah, no. And also
talking to my mom was enough to get me hot when I was in college.
We as the viewer know what all the different stuff that Charlie's dealing with emotionally and kind of internally that he's not letting the people outside really know. Not even Tori. Tori's kind of like starting to suspect. She's starting to see him and be like, oh shit, something's off. And she's worried. She's starting to worry. She's not sure why yet, but she can sense the shift in Charlie's demeanor. It's tough to know how to talk to him when he's not open about what he's thinking or dealing with. But if Tori can sense there's a shift in his demeanor, his mom should be able to sense that there's a shift in his demeanor. And I think that I think that to me, you ask me, that's where the fault lies, is that she obviously can't know him enough because of how she parents. And that can come from how she was parented.
Yeah, for sure. Charlie, after this interaction with his mom, storms out of the room and slams the door. And I just have to add in here, y'all, being white is wild.
Oh, girl.
Ooh, being white, that shit's crazy, dog. I would not be here talking to you today if I went around slamming doors.
Yo, you wasn't slamming the door in my house.
You were doing the thing where you went to slam it and then you caught it immediately before it hit the door jam.
Yep.
Because you needed the release of like hitting something hard, but then you would catch it before it made noise.
Yep. You let it catch your foot,
and then you do you do the silent scream. You just open your mouth and just breathe hard, like you. Yeah, nope, no, none of that in my home. You know, the mom turns to Tori, who's left in the room now, and tells her, "Hey, don't undermine me in front of Charlie." Girl, I'm sorry. You're kind of inviting a lot of undermining right now.
Man, you undermined yourself.
Correct. And Tori tells her straightforwardly, like, you were being too harsh. Mom says, I can never say the right thing to him, with like a tone of exasperation. As if, again, this is Charlie's fault. As if she's done everything possible, you know, short of asking her kid anything about himself, and he's reacting poorly and she doesn't know why. Incredibly big mom behavior right there. We cut over to Menorca, where Nick and his hot aunt, Haley Atwell, also known as Aunt Diane,
is so beautiful.
She's gorgeous. Chat about Nick having a boyfriend. We see him kind of mention that he has a boyfriend in this tone where you can tell it seems like he's anticipating a lot of questions. One of the really nice things about his aunt is that she just replies, we have a lot to talk about, don't we? Mm-hmm. How about we discuss this over a glass of red and some breadsticks? And it's like, oh, girl, I love your energy. I love the tone. Energy. I love the hot goss that you want to hear about. Like, it's just it's a relief. It's such a contrast, right, between the adult interactions that we've seen elsewhere on the show. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And obviously, it's kind of the opposite to how Charlie's mom handled the whole boyfriend situation.
I mean, it's different when you're talking to your son than when you're talking to your nephew. But if we compare Charlie's mom to Nick's mom,
totally different.
It's totally different.
Totally
and I think
different.
We pointed that out when we were talking about season 1.
For sure.
Just like it was surprised me when I saw Charlie's parents' reaction versus Nick's mom's reaction to learning about, you know, having a boyfriend.
In a fun intersection in the storylines between Charlie and Nick, I, as we were just talking about kind of at length, like didn't have a great relationship with my mom. However, I had a really lovely relationship and continue to have with one of my aunts. And she was always so much easier to talk to about almost anything than my mom was. And as Paola said, it's easier when they aren't your kids. You can kind of clock out, right? Like you don't have to worry about all of the logistics of raising this kid. But it was one thing to be able to sit with my aunt and be like, oh yeah, this happened at school today, and have her be like, oh, tell me about that. What happened? Like your little friend, the one that you brought over that I remember with my brain because it matters to you. And then having my mom be like, how was school today? Oh, it was okay. Oh, it was okay? All right. I'm going to make dinner. Bye. You're just like, okay.
Yeah. 2 separate beings for sure.
Yeah. And, you know, we get a scene where we're flashing back to Truum, where we see Mr. Ajayi and Mr. Farouk, who are setting up the finalized GCSE results. This caught me off guard. This is off topic, y'all. I'm sorry. In like a very old-fashioned way, labeled manila envelopes, alphabetized in boxes in the gym.
This
Girl,
is just...
What?
This is for the show.
What?
This is an email. This is an email.
It's
that
an
you'll
online
receive.
platform with a password.
Yes. This is an online situation. You sign in, you see your grades, or they email them. Like,
yes, or they mail them to your home.
Or if it's paper, they're mailing it to your home. Nobody's going back to the school to pick. And
everyone's
nobody's
on vacation.
setting up an event at the
school. But if you can't pick them up yourself, you're shit out of luck. What the fuck is that?
No. Charlie picked up Nick's.
Oh,
so
no
it's
problem.
not even a verification of like, are you picking up your own? Like everyone's getting anybody's information that they want to.
This was bananas to me. Like this was wild. Anyway,
it's for the show. I appreciated the Mr. Ajayi and Mr. Farouk interaction. And
it's very cute.
How they're laying out their papers. And then the other teacher comes in and just plots them on the table.
Like, they're clearly together, right? We left Mr. Ajayi and Mr. Farouk exploring their relationship at the end of season 2. Very much a tertiary plot, but it's something very sweet. Kind of like you get these moments of seeing adults figuring themselves out and their own relationships out, aside from the kids doing all of their own self-discovery. And it's kind of this gentle reminder that self-discovery doesn't end and that growth doesn't end. Yeah. And you continue to evolve and you continue to grow, whether you're in your late 20s, early 30s, or whether you're a teenager. And so they very quickly decide, Mr. Jai and Mr. Farouk, to be less obvious about the relationship when they're near the students, when they're at school, because they don't want to lose the respect of their students once they find out they're dating. We see Tao and Elle walking towards Truum to pick up Elle's GCSE results. They're super fucking cute. They're obsessed with each other. Behind them, we see Darcy's grandma pull up in some like old ass Mini Cooper type car, goals, dreams.
It is adorable.
She's dropping Darcy and Tara off at Truum to pick up their results. The first thing she tells Darcy is, bad grades aren't the worst thing in the world. I left school at 14 and look at me now, thriving. Queen. How many characters is this show gonna make me go to battle for? Who do I have to unsheath my sword for? Everyone on this fucking show. Like, grandma, move into my house. I'll feed you. She's amazing. I love her. She lets Darcy know as well that she's getting her room ready in her own home, so Darcy's grandma's home, to move in. We see that Tara is feeling nervous about her GCSE results after Darcy's doing her best to kind of hype her up and tell her that she's probably done really well. And I don't know if Tara's afraid of doing poorly. It seems like what she's more afraid of is having done too well. And we get more into the school. We see more of our core group. Charlie is with Tori to pick up Tori and Nick's results, respectively. They're all opening their results inside the school, which is crazy work. I would carry that home in a sweaty fist, okay? I wouldn't open that around people. Oh my God, that's between me and God.
So they can all celebrate together.
I can't. So pretty much everyone gets really good results with the exception of Darcy. And we see her ball up her results and stick them in her pocket.
I mean, can we expect her to have good grades with all the drama that she's gone through the year with her mom? And we only got to see a glimpse of it at the end of the year. Who knows what she was going through all year long?
I also feel like there were comments and like jokes made throughout the first season, passing comments about Darcy not being smart. Like even her kind of saying that about herself. And so I feel like this kind of brings that to its natural conclusion where, as you mentioned, she's got all this drama going on at home, a poor relationship with her mom, not an amazing living situation. We kind of see her constantly in this like spirit of escapism and like class clownery. Now the test results are in and they're bad. We see Mr. Ajayi pull Tara aside and he tells her that he hopes she will be joining their Oxbridge prep group. Oxbridge, for all of us dirty Americans, meaning Oxford/Cambridge prep group. So, right, these are the two oldest, most prestigious universities in England. Equivalent to an American teacher going up to a student and being like, hey, you should totally apply to every Ivy League school. Yeah. You're going to Harvard.
I mean, she got almost perfect scores. And, well, I don't know what the top score is. It seems the highest score everyone got was a 9. I mean, and she got all 9s. So I'm assuming that she got perfect results. And that stressed her out almost immediately.
She did not like that.
The pressure's on.
Charlie texts Nick a picture of his results. Again, not a shred of privacy here. And congratulates him on doing so well. Nick has gotten 7s, 8s, and 9s.
He got a 5 in math.
Listen, same.
That's the GCSE that he was working on, and it all turned into scribbles in front of him.
Oh, yeah. No, I did. Obviously, I'm American, so I didn't take GCSEs. I took SATs, and I also took, and this may be familiar to some of you, I also took the IB diploma. Oh, my God. Universally, my lowest score was math. Why am I here having a podcast with my sister? You know what I'm saying? It's not because I was good at math. So Nick receives this text from Charlie while he's in the pool, which is a thing we didn't need. Nick could have had a shirt on. I don't know. I just thought that was exciting.
Not in the pool.
And he kind of announces to his aunt and uncle that he's passed his GCSEs, that he's done pretty well. They have like the chillest and best energy, honestly, like both his aunt and his uncle. And they tell Nick like, oh, hey, you should bring your boyfriend for Christmas so that the family can like pass judgment on him or whatever. They're clearly kidding. Oh, and maybe next summer you can bring him along for the next family holiday where we take like our really long hot weather hikes or whatever. It is obviously a joke. Nick is kind of like, oh, yeah, that's cute. And then he briefly imagines Charlie there on holiday with him and sees him approaching a table of food looking fearful while the halo around the screen starts going kind of black and scratchy.
Yeah.
And he has to shake off the daydream. He can't feel comfortable with Charlie participating in that kind of thing, knowing that Charlie won't be able to exert healthy behaviors, right, and feel well. He takes a pool selfie and sends it to Charlie in response to his GCSEs. That's wild. That's wild work, dog. Cut to Charlie walking out of Truum with all of their friends. And Isaac asks them all, like, hey, we're going to Nando's, which is like I think a fast food chain in England. We're going to Nando's to celebrate our results, right? Like, aren't we all going together? And everybody fucking blows him off in a way that is really frustrating, because it's like, I know that they're all teenagers and they're very imperfect, but it just seems very thoughtless. Like, usually as a group, they're so much better about this kind of thing. And so they're kind of like, oh, well, I'm busy. Okay, well, I have to go pack and I'm doing this at so-and-so's house. And like, oh, sorry. And they all just disperse. Even Charlie, who definitely doesn't have plans because Nick isn't around, begs off. He just seems out of it. And we leave Isaac kind of alone in front of the school looking really defeated.
I mean, to everyone's defense, everyone's kind of going through stuff. Like, Tara's stressed out, Darcy's stressed out, Charlie's stressed out. With the exception of Tao and Elle, where it's just them wanting to be on their own and doing their fun stuff and dating. They left there all feeling kind of crappy.
Yeah, that's fair. And they're all kind of dealing with that in their own ways.
Yeah.
So after that scene, we cut to Charlie at home, dejectedly looking at his text from Nick, kind of refreshing his phone, not getting any other messages. Tori comes into his room to let him know that dinner is ready. And if we know Charlie, baby, we know what he's going to do. And that's going to be lie and skip that meal. He says that he had a big meal earlier. That's a lie. Doesn't really want to have dinner. And that he doesn't really want to be around their mom since they were butting heads. And Tori lets it go. He takes a couple of selfies of himself to send back to Nick and can't quite muster up a smile in any of them. Doesn't seem to like any of the ones that he's taken and deletes them. Responds to Nick with a heart eyes emoji instead.
And a fire emoji, to be clear.
Okay. All right. Good to know, Paola. As the weeks wind down, because we kind of start getting like more montage action, right? I think in episodes 2 and 3 of season 3. Charlie and Nick text each other frequently. And, you know, Nick is trying to enjoy his vacation, but he kind of can't stop thinking of Charlie. And the constant texting seems to be a little bit worse than better for them and how they miss each other. We find out through some, you know, I would say some 7 out of 10 exposition that Nick's aunt is actually a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
He asks her if she's ever treated people with eating disorders. She says it isn't her specialty, but she's English, so she pronounces it speciality.
Sounds so fancy.
It does sound so fancy and goofy. It's not like old-timey. It's not my speciality. Like, what? Is it the 20s? Anyway, but she says that she's familiar, obviously, with the concept and treatments and stuff for eating disorders. Nick doesn't really tell her why, and she kind of lets it go. We see Tara and Elle help Darcy move into her grandma's house. Grandma Ivy seems to have no problem with Darcy's sexuality, and we know that because Grandma Ivy looks at one of the blank walls in Darcy's new bedroom and says, oh, we can get a poster of a handsome guy up in here. And Darcy goes, Grandma, I'm a lesbian. And Grandma's like, we could get a nice poster of a beautiful lady up here. Like, does not miss a fucking beat. Mm-hmm. The way I love this woman. This character that's on screen for 75 seconds in all of season 3, I love her.
And we love that Tara was right. Maybe she's nice.
Maybe this will be okay.
We can see that this is going to be a good thing.
We learn that Darcy's mom has been calling her off and on, and Darcy hasn't been responding.
Oh, now she's calling her off and on, right?
Now after she went missing for 2 days. Darcy hasn't spoken to her since she left her house for the last time right before prom. Tara reminds her that she doesn't have to speak to her if she doesn't want to. And something that I really love about that and about this show kind of in general, I think throughout different situations across all 3 seasons, they really emphasize the importance of setting and enforcing boundaries.
Yeah.
Darcy has other resources in her life. Now she has her grandmother. She has Tara. She has a big and supportive group of friends who would probably pitch in to help her if she needed them to, if she needed additional support. And so she's able to turn away from this toxic relationship with her mother and toxic living situation at her mother's home. Not everybody can do that. And there's no judgment for that. Like, there's no judgment for people that have to stay in a more toxic situation because they don't have the resources. They don't have the external support to find their way out of it. And the show doesn't criticize that, right? It doesn't criticize the lack of support, but it is demonstrating the importance of prioritizing your own boundaries and remaining true to yourself and your identity and the recognition of that identity and respect for that identity in the face of bias and prejudice, even if that bias and prejudice comes from your family, even if the call is literally coming from inside the house.
Right. And I think that that's the toughest part, right? Because to draw a boundary from a friend, to draw a boundary from a different relative, you don't live for that person. That person hasn't been responsible for your care for your whole life. To draw a boundary from a parent is incredibly difficult. To see Darcy going through that journey is important because it's gotten to a point where it's so toxic that it's unhealthy for her. Yeah. It is unhealthy for her mental health, for her well-being to be in that environment, which calls for that boundary to be enforced, even if it's your mom.
I was considering, boundary setting and the importance of that in some of the other relationships, right, as well. Charlie setting boundaries with Ben Hope in seasons 1 and 2. Or Nick setting boundaries with his friends when he felt like they weren't supportive of his friendship with Charlie. And something that I think can be difficult to learn, it was difficult for me to learn, is that setting a boundary isn't saying, hey, here's my boundary, and then the other person tramples on it and you go, okay, that's not the boundary. The boundary is the enforcement. It's you giving a consequence. You saying, hey, it's fucked up that you do that. And I can't control that you do that. But when you do it, I'm going to respond in this way. Right. So next time, don't fucking act brand new. Don't say I didn't warn you. And that's something that the characters on this show are really good at carrying out, that I admire, that I wish I had a shred of when I was a fucking teenager. I was a doormat as a teenager, a goddamn doofus. And it takes years of making and unmaking and therapy to get to a place where you're kind of like, okay, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable demonstrating that there are consequences to other people's actions when it comes to me and my space and energy.
That's so funny because I would never describe you in that way. I think you've always been very vocal about the shit that makes you uncomfortable. Maybe that's just to me. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's just to me.
Absolutely. And as they're getting Darcy's room set up, the girls talk to Elle about spending too much time with Tao and how they've barely gotten a chance to spend time with her throughout the entire summer so far. Elle admits that she's feeling a little overwhelmed by Tao's enthusiasm for their relationship and that he seems afraid that if he doesn't prove he's a good enough boyfriend before Elle goes to Lambert for sixth form, that she'll dump him. And Darcy brings up he has quite low self-esteem, doesn't he? Which is just coming in hot with the truth, per usual. Darcy is constantly just making connections, seeing patterns, girlhood at its finest. No, I'm kidding. We cut from that scene to Charlie drumming listlessly at home in his room. He ignores a message from Isaac confirming whether or not they'll be having a movie night that evening. And we also see Tori coming into Charlie's room, sitting down next to him on his drumming stool bench and abruptly giving him a hug. And he's kind of like, what's up? Are you okay? What's good with that? And she says, I'm worried. I don't know. I love you. Because she's clearly sensing that the vibes are bad, doesn't know what to do about it, doesn't know how to bring it up, just needs to reaffirm to Charlie for his awareness that she loves him and that he's cared for.
It's a sweet moment with Tori.
Yeah, it is a sweet moment, but it's also sad because you know things are about to go downhill.
It's just sweet how she senses him.
I mean, you're a sibling. You sense.
Yeah, but not all siblings are like that. So it's want to recognize that that's very sweet that she does.
That's true. I think the way that she does it is really nice, and it's not the way I do it with Paola, where I go, hey, there's something wrong with you. I can tell by how you sound, and I'm not going to change the topic or talk about anything else until you tell me what's wrong.
Tell me now, or the rest of the day is ruined.
Tell me immediately. I'm so anxious I'm going to pass out.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I don't usually I don't think I usually withhold too much. If anything, if I don't want to talk about it at the moment, be like, I might just have to give you a teaser.
You give me a synopsis. You're like, it's something, it's about this. I just don't, it's stupid and I don't want to talk about it right now. And then I'm like, okay, as long as I know a little bit, fine.
Yeah.
In the next scene, we see Elle as she and Tao flirt and make out on his bed in his room. She talks to Tao after the subject of his dad comes up, where they're kind of like looking at a camera and playing around with, some of his old memories. He talks about finding his dad's old camera and that he wants to keep it and use it. He mentions how his dad was constantly taking pictures and videos of him. It's a really bittersweet moment, because he mentions, his dad was always trying to pose him for pictures and he never wanted to pose because he was a little kid and he thought it was annoying. And now, after losing his dad abruptly at some point when he was younger, he wishes that he had sat still. He wishes he had posed for these pictures.
Think of the juxtaposition between how Tao is thinking about his dad. He's explaining, at the moment I was annoyed. At the moment I didn't want to do the thing. And now that he's not here, I'm looking back now and I wish I would have done the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And directly opposite him, we cut directly almost to Charlie, who's properly annoyed with his mom. I don't know if it's the show reminding you, like, I guess kind of what we just talked about, like the importance of your parents, but also drawing boundaries with the parents. Like it seems like a theme in this space, right? Like the importance of your parents, but also drawing the boundaries that you need to, open communication.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting that you're seeing you're seeing three very varied perspectives on parent-child relationships. I like how the show is portraying you just different parent-child dynamics, how they can all be different and yours doesn't have to be like anybody else's, just like you're saying. And they change and they evolve. And almost like that's okay. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to pigeonhole yourself to a certain type of relationship with your parent if that's not the relationship that you're going to have.
Mm-hmm. It's
kind of a theme in this episode. You're seeing those different dynamics because different people identify with different parent-child dynamics.
I like that a lot. Yeah. So we're still with Tao and Elle, right, in his bedroom. Isaac has joined them for a movie. But they end up like flirting and romping around like a little too fucking hard, and genuinely like they're being egregious.
It really is. It's really
like kind of
very
ridiculous.
Extra. Elle is in like a bra and shorts.
Girl.
Like, girl.
And they're just cuddled up on this bed. Okay. It's like they're doing the most. And they really end up making Isaac feel like a third wheel, which is valid. I think anybody in Isaac's position would. It's just that Isaac no tiene pelo en la lengua. Like he's just going to fucking say it.
Well, yeah, no. As the viewer, you're like, all right, guys. Are we watching this movie? What are we doing?
Yeah, what's up? He asks where Charlie is, and Tao distractedly replies that Charlie hasn't been responding to the group chat and that he's probably with Nick or something. And Isaac's like, he's not with Nick. Nick is on vacation, on holiday. What are you talking about? He's probably with Nick.
Which is another indicator that Tao has not been fucking paying attention.
And neither, in a weirder turn of events, has Elle.
I know, who's always pretty in tune with what's going on with the friend group.
Elle's like, oh, well, you know how Charlie is. Sometimes, like, I'm sure he's fine. He's probably just home. And Isaac's like, no, it's fucking weird. And you're annoying me. I'm out of here.
Love him.
Peace out, motherfuckers. And so he dips. And in the next scene, we see that Tori comes to Charlie's door, to the door of his room, and announces that his friend with all of the books is there, which is so funny. We see Isaac come in and he has a moment, where he tries to confront Charlie about why he's pulled away so much. And honestly, he's really vulnerable in the process. He tells Charlie, our friendship group is all over the place at the moment and I'm just feeling really left out. You haven't been answering these messages. Like, what's going on with you? Are you okay?
I love his straightforwardness here.
Oh my, what a blessing it would be to have a friend like that at any fucking age. Oh my God.
Because he makes it easy for Charlie to say, hey, you know what? There is something going on. But even then, he doesn't do it.
And I was going to say, and the sad thing is that Charlie still doesn't. So Charlie apologizes, just kind of like, hey, I'm sorry that we've all made you feel that way. I'm sorry that you're not able to spend as much time with everyone this summer, but doesn't say specifically like, hey, I'm having a really hard time. Doesn't name it. And Isaac is like, it's fine. Like, I'm not like mad, right? Like, I'm not mad at you. I just want to make sure that you're okay.
Right.
And Charlie lies, as he's prone to doing, and insists that he's fine. He's just sad that Nick is gone. He's having issues with his mom. He promises to do better with Isaac. They end up watching the new Emma adaptation that Isaac loves so much. It's almost like Charlie giving him like a little olive branch. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, we can watch that movie that you like. And Isaac's like, okay.
Isaac even says, like, do you want me to go? Like, I've checked on you.
Yeah.
I can go.
I've done what I came to do.
Charlie's kind of like, well, let's watch that movie.
Yeah.
This is something I do a lot, and Nana knows this, because it's such a low energy activity, but it's still a bonding experience.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm feeling extremely overwhelmed, I'm doing a million things, I still have work to do, but we have to spend time together. Nadya's over, and I'm like, we need to spend time together. You're here. Nadya, let's put on a movie. But it has to be something I know so that I can.
So she can zone out a little bit.
so I'm able to zone out. It's like the low energy thing you can do and it still be a bonding activity. It was the perfect opportunity. It's the perfect way to interact with Charlie while he's going through this wave.
It's a perfect
depression,
honestly,
kind of.
Perfect depression activity, movie watching.
And still a company of friends. Still be there.
Movie watching, reading in company, like
just
great
in
depression
company.
activities.
I mean, Isaac doesn't know that Charlie is going through this, but he can sense that maybe just some company is good.
You know, you get the sense that everybody's kind of holding their breath around Charlie, right? Like they know something's wrong. They don't know how to make him admit it. They don't want to force his hand. They don't know how to force him to do anything about it necessarily. So they just go with like reaffirming their presence, reaffirming that they love him, even though that doesn't necessarily seem to make him feel any better. It doesn't really seem to work.
I mean, by everybody, we're really only talking about Tori.
Isaac and Tori,
at this
right?
point.
But like prominent, and Nick to an extent, like prominent people in this episode in Charlie's life. Yeah, in a moment of being vulnerable on Maine, this resonates with me as a professionally mentally ill person, as I've called myself. I've definitely been in Charlie's shoes. Like, just as far as episode 2, I've been in Charlie's shoes more than any other character this season. I resonate with his path more than anybody else's. There's like this weird brand of guilt that comes with depression. There's like this withdrawal that comes with like the people that you know about constantly like checking in on you and you not knowing how to tell them like, I'm not feeling great, there's like something wrong with me, without being a massive fucking bummer. The guilt just gets higher and bigger and more stifling, and instead you're just kind of like, well, it's easier to lie, right? Like it's easier to keep isolating myself. It's easier not to tell you how badly I feel because I don't want to worry you more, but I also don't want to trigger more investigating from you. Like it's this like circle of loneliness and pushing people away, and then feeling lonely because you've pushed people away, and then pushing people away more and feeling lonelier about it. That's the thing with like depression, isn't it? Like there's this like perverse belief that if you let them know how you're feeling, if you let them know that you're doing really poorly, they'll feel worse, they'll shun you, right? Like they'll reject you. Something about you is gross. And depression is a little bitch. It's just a little bitch. That's what we see Charlie avoiding, right? Like in this like mode of being very depressed, he's just avoiding honest interactions.
Yeah. Being on the other end of that, seeing a loved one struggle with that, you're not sure how you can be there. And I think that that's why seeing how Isaac interacts with him in that moment is so important. Like open honesty, so you don't have to wonder how I'm feeling, or you're not second guessing anything on this end. And just presence. Low energy, low
stakes
presence.
I'm not letting you be alone right now. You're not alone. Sorry. You're stuck with me. Like that's, yeah. After this scene, we see that Tori and Charlie's mom goes to Tori. So as Paola and I were mentioning earlier, right? Like this offloading of parenthood. She goes to Tori and she's like, hey, can you call Charlie down for dinner? Like, you know how he gets when I ask him to do anything. And Tori's like, all right. She goes to Charlie's room.
So she hasn't tried to talk to him.
No.
She hasn't tried to reach out. Hey, I know you're upset. Listen, I'm upset too for whatever my reason is. Let's talk about it.
No.
I mean, not that Charlie would be very receptive right now, but there's been no effort.
Nope. Tori goes to get Charlie. Paola can't relate to this at all. LOL. And she goes to grab him and ends up in his room by herself and sneaks a look at his computer, where she sees that Charlie has been researching anorexia and other eating disorders. She texts Nick for the first time ever. They have no previous chats, asking him when he's coming home because she's worried about Charlie.
Yeah.
As for Tao and Elle, she finally has a conversation with him after they're like having another super summer of romance date. He comes over to take her out to a movie. And she's kind of like, all right, pause. We're doing something different every single day. You're trying to make every day special. That's really nice. But like, I know that you lost your dad. I know that you're afraid of like losing me or like losing the people that you care about. yeah, I'm leaving for this new school, but I don't want you to feel like I'm going to dump you because I'm leaving for school. I don't want you to feel like you're left behind, like you're just going to be like stuck and everybody's moving on without you. That's not what's happening. I think it was really sweet. I kind of think it was exactly what he needed to hear from her to feel like a level of reassurance in their relationship. And she tells him that she loves him for the first time, romantically. For the first time. They loved each other as friends.
When I first saw this thing, I'm like, you guys haven't been telling you love each other forever.
Years.
For years. But now it has a different weight to it. Now it's I'm in love with you.
Because they're in a relationship.
Which is very cute.
Well, of course, Tao reciprocates immediately. They are both so super duper in love. They're precious. My God. And now we're back at Charlie's house, and we see him pushing food around on his plate. As he looks down at his food, we get this black halo cloud that's enveloping kind of the edges of the screen as his family's kind of idle chatter about the meal and about having dinner together kind of fades into the background. Everyone manages to notice, this is the fucking first, I think, that Charlie has barely touched his food, hasn't eaten anything. When they ask if he's okay, he excuses himself. He goes to his room, and as he goes to his room and he's feeling like kind of wobbly, he's kind of starting to cry, he gets a call from Nick, who is calling him now that he's received that message from Tori, and is like really, really nervous. Nick asks if Charlie's okay, kind of brings up the eating disorder again. This is one of the first times that Charlie admits out loud that he might have a problem, and he starts crying.
Yeah, I think he realized with how dinner just went, he finally realized like, oh shit,
this is bad.
This is bad.
Nick tells him, everything will be okay, but I don't know what to do. You can talk to your parents about this, like they're going to want to help you. And Charlie is a teenager and hasn't had many great interactions with his mom recently. And he says, I can't talk to my mom. He doesn't mention his dad.
No, he doesn't.
And he says, I can't talk to my mom. She's not like your mom. And she'll be angry with me. She'll be angry with me if I tell her I have a medical condition. And Charlie, dog.
Or they'll think I'm making it up. That shit.
I'm right there with you, my G.
Broke my heart.
Because there are levels of care that I did not get until I was an adult. Because trying to get them sooner would have been pointless.
This broke my heart to watch Charlie go through that, and in this moment realize this thing you've been trying to tell me and I've been trying to deny, like you're right. You're right, and I don't know what to do. And so Nick can't do anything. What he's telling him to do, Charlie refuses to do because he doesn't feel supported in his home.
So not only is there like a metaphorical distance, there's a literal distance. Nick is in fucking Spain. There's nothing much that he can do other than text Charlie, call him, try to talk to him on the phone.
There's an interview where they're talking about this scene where Charlie's performing this and Nick is in the room kind of feeding him the lines that he would be saying on the phone. And he's watching the interaction live, and like he just talks about like how moved everyone was, how moved he himself was watching this performance from Charlie. This performance from Joe Locke tore my heart open.
Dude, he ate the fucking scene
Oh my
up.
God.
As he's having this discussion with Nick, their conversation is interrupted by Charlie's mom, who comes into his room. She comes in hot. She's already annoyed, right? And she's like, did you leave dinner to text Nick? And I'm like, girl, give it a fucking rest.
Yo.
If your son is spending that much time talking to his boyfriend, maybe ask him fucking why. But I don't know. That'd be crazy. She doesn't even notice that Charlie is crying. Tears on his cheeks, wet face. Or even worse, if she does notice, she doesn't say anything. And that's like a cardinal sin for me.
Yeah.
She says, Charlie, you can't keep skipping dinner. You have to eat. Great, Mom. You're crushing it. Your powers of perception are unmatched. Charlie says that he's feeling unwell, like kind of like, that's why I'm not eating. I'm not feeling well. And his mom is like, all right, well, come downstairs. I'll get you some medicine. It's not even like sympathy. Like she's just annoyed. Her whole air is just like, well, I'm frustrated.
Oh, you're not feeling well?
exasperated.
I guess I'll give you medicine. Like there's
fine.
no empathy coming from this woman at all. There's no like, what do you mean you're not feeling? What is it that you're feeling?
Yeah.
Oh.
Are you sick? Do you need Pepto-Bismol? No.
Is it a headache? Is it a stomach ache? No, there's no.
No.
I can't. The rage that it gave me to watch this woman interact. And you know what? I don't know if I feel that rage only because we know what Charlie's going through. Would I still feel that rage if I didn't know what Charlie's going through? If I was just looking at it from the outside? I don't know.
Like if you had emotionally mature parents, you mean? I don't know, dog. What's that like?
Maybe, but here I am, just trying to find excuses for everyone again in my life. Anyway.
I'm like, here I am, just angrier with each passing day. And, Charlie, after this interaction with his mom, abruptly hangs up the phone, tells Nick that he loves him, hangs up the phone. This leaves Nick even more distressed. Now he feels so powerless, he doesn't know what to do. This was hard as fuck to watch. I was rewatching this and crying because I've been Charlie many times in my life in a very similar situation, and it sucks ass. It feels so fucking stupid. And Joe Locke crushed it. He did this scene so well. Oh, it was so good.
And I feel like, what it remind this scene, now that you're saying that, you remember those emails we came across the other day when you were in DR?
Yes.
And we were literally emailing each other all summer. Nadhya was in DR. I was home. I was working.
Yeah.
I was already working age.
I was 15 and Paola was just turning 21.
You were going through a pretty rough time over there. And I'm like, damn, yo, like, what can I tell you? And in an email, like, what can I say? I hate to hear you like this. Like, talk to mommy. Cheer up. Try to cheer up. Talk to mommy. Like, and you can't.
I think it was like, oh, talk to mommy. And I think I literally responded like, no.
And say what, Paola?
Yeah. No. How will that make anything better, Paola?
Yeah.
Yeah. Aww. And in the next scene, we see Nick trying to skip rocks on the shore well into the evening. So he's at the same spot where he had this phone call with Charlie. He has stayed there. He's clearly just feeling super restless. His aunt comes to check on him, and he pretty much immediately confesses his concerns, right, about Charlie and his eating disorder. And she asks him not to take the burden all on his own. She tells him it's not his job to fix Charlie, that the only thing he can do as a 16-year-old boy who's his boyfriend is be there for him. And she comforts Nick, and she's like, this is a really big burden for a teenager. This is a really big burden for a boy. This isn't up to you, right? Like, this is so much bigger than you. She asks Nick to talk to Charlie about getting help from a professional. Nick is just an individual, just a young guy, does not have the tools to help Charlie through this properly. Simultaneously, as Aunt Diane is giving this speech to Nick, we see Charlie doing an online test to find out if he has an eating disorder. One of the things that Aunt Diane tells Nick, really over the rest of this scene, almost montage style, is love can't cure a mental illness. Like, you love him. Love cannot cure mental illness. She lets Nick know that he can be there for Charlie, to talk to him or to listen to him. He can try his best to cheer him up when he has bad days. But ultimately, sometimes people need more support than one person can give. That's love, darling.
This was such a beautiful scene. And she delivered this so well. The song My Vine by the Wasia Project starts playing. This is the band that William Gow is in with his sister, which I think is great. And it's just such a beautiful message to let a teenager know you can't do this on your own. You can't be the hero, because Nick wants to be able to be his hero. He can't put all of that on himself. This is too much. And what I do like that she does, though, is because he's like, then I can't do anything. Then what can I do? I just do nothing. Mm-hmm. She's like, no. There's ways you can support him. And really provides him with a roadmap on how he can continue to support Charlie. But pretty much just tell him, like, what you can do is you can just try to be there for him. And understands, like, anything outside of that is out of my hands. Literally has to go to someone else. Mm-hmm. And gives him that reassurance that he's doing his best.
Continuing under this voiceover of Nick's Aunt Diane, again kind of proceeding in like this montage fashion, we see flashes of Darcy blocking her mom's contact info on her phone. We see flashes of Isaac refreshing his text chat with Charlie, who has left him on red as of their last message. And this is one of the few instances where, me personally, I think, Bala might disagree, Heartstopper felt almost like a little too preachy, a little too on the nose, but I guess only because it kind of had to be in this instance. It's pretty much literally trying to teach the viewer, who you assume is a teenager, that when someone in their life is going through mental illness, they need much bigger help. and that they can't just rely on their partner or their best friend or other teenagers to have the knowledge or the experience to help them through it alone. They need a community, they need family or a friend group or other supportive adults and guardians, teachers, medical professionals, etc., to help them get through it. And it has to be kind of a holistic effort. Mental illness can't be compartmentalized to affect one part of your life. And I say that from like very stupid recurring experience. Nick can't heal or fix Charlie, and he has to let go of the belief that he can so that he can be as helpful to him as possible. And that's tough to do as a teenager. Adults lack that awareness, but the show does a really good job of like bringing that to light. This theme is explored in a couple of different ways throughout season 3 so far. You know, starting with Tara and Darcy, like Darcy moving into her grandmother's house rather than continuing to live with Tara because that's putting a strain on their relationship. Elle gently reminding Tao that she won't stop loving him just because they aren't close together at school anymore. And even Isaac being the only one to meaningfully check in on Charlie. One person won't be the thing to make us or save us, even though, unfortunately, on the flip side of that, one person can be the thing to break us. Yikes. But regardless of whether they're saving us from like mental illness or insecurity or material insecurity, like Darcy's living situation, one person can't fix that for you. And I think Alice Oseman identifying as aromantic and asexual in her personal life brings a really great perspective to this, because even though the main pairing that we're exploring with this theme is like Charlie and Nick, there are ways that this dynamic impacts like romantic relationships, but also friendships, family relationships, and that kind of emphasis on building community, because truly, like, without romantic partners, like, what do we have? What have you built for yourself if you don't have a romantic partner? Do you have a strong community? Do you have good friends? Do you have people you can rely on? Like, what does that look like for you? And how can you rely on each other without the basis of a romantic relationship? Who are your people that you can go to in a situation like what Charlie's experiencing? That wraps up episode 2 of Heartstopper season 3. That's some heavy ass shit. Woo. We already knew. We knew this would take us a long time. We were optimistic that it would only take us 2 episodes, but I think we lied. We're excited to keep recapping this for y'all. We're hoping to get it done like ASAP so we can get it out quickly. You know the drill. You know what it is. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for, interacting with us on Instagram or on Patreon. Come and find us on Patreon if that's something that you're interested in. If not, totally cool. Keep listening to us on whatever platform you find us. Yeah. Thank you so much. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, leave a review anywhere you get your podcasts. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, iHeart, anywhere. We love it. It brings up our moods. It also gives us some really awesome feedback. So thank you. We read all of them and we really appreciate it. Come and find us on Instagram at Sis Flicks Podcast. Shoot us an email at sisflickspodcast@gmail.com and let us know if you have any movie requests or anything that you would like for us to cover in the future. Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves. We will link some resources in the show notes for this episode in case you are struggling through anything, in case this episode of Heartstopper hits really close to home. But we're so grateful to have you here with us. Thank you.